We're going to talk about my favorite word again in this lesson, which is intentionality. And what I want you to think about is, have I let my life just kind of pass me by, or have I been living with intention? And that could look, right? Like that could look like, hey, there are times for sure, right? I could say for 20 years of drinking, I let life kind of pass me by. There was some intentionality, right? I had moments of clarity. It wasn't like I was just like solidly drinking all day, all night, but a lot of that was just unhappiness and fear, right? And then just doing the drinking, and then life just goes. And you can make some plans, but it makes it hard. So where I am right now in my life is I just want to live with so much more intention. I want to think about the decisions we make. I want to understand how they will impact us moving forward. Does it work for right now? And I sometimes hate living with intention, because does it work right now is never something I really want to focus on, because if I want it, it needs to work. I have very little patience for that. And so if I see that my plan, if I'm living with intention, needs to pause, that's very hard for me. I would like to rather just burn everything to the ground and go it and do it and say, well, I tried. So sometimes when we're intentional, it's a bummer, because we recognize that like it isn't going to work in that moment, when we're taking into account also another person, right? So dreams, and very similar as into our last lesson, right? 2 dreams, 1 lifetime. How do we make this possible? How do we start to be intentional with what we want out of life? How do we talk about that with our partner? How do we create space for each person to have dreams, especially when they're outside of the like family or the relationship? Because so many of the dreams that we like co-create in our mind is the family dream. But I can't tell you how many people are not intentional in this phase, because one person might want more children and the other one doesn't. You have more children, right? Maybe one person's climbing the ladder, keeps taking the promotions, not checking in. That makes it hard. Then we're not being intentional and talking through it. And we say it's in the name and the sake of the family. Well, if I got these raises and we can have a bigger house, we can put our kids in this private school, or we can go on these vacations, or, and usually it's we can get the bigger house, bigger mortgage, and then do that remodel. I got to stay in this job. So here we are in this collective co-created dream of a family, but nobody feels very like this is our dream. Because again, we're not being intentional. We're signing the kids up for everything, working all the time. Where's the marriage? Right? So we limit our dreams as a marriage, and we have a family. And like, that is awesome. Creating something from love, creating a fucking human from love. Like, yeah, incredible. How amazing. Like, found a person that you like want to do that with. But that cannot be all. Because then what? Then what are we doing? It is we've gotten here and nobody's super pumped. Because we haven't then thought about what do we do once we get there? Then how do we live our life? Then how do we dream? Then we're like, oh, okay, well, I used to want to be a, dancer. So I'll put my kid in dance, or, I wanted to coach. I wanted to play baseball, but I had a coach that was terrible. And so I quit baseball. And so now I'm the coach, and I would never let another child quit because of my own shit. Or, I'm a politician, so you're going to be a politician. I didn't make it to be the president, but you're going to be the president. So now any dream I didn't get to live because probably the family got in the way of those dreams, now I'm going to put into my child and they will live out that dream for me. And that also isn't going to work. Because now we're hyper-focused on a person within the family that is not our partner, hoping that they're going to live out this dream that we have had. But it's so far from us now. It's not our dream. We didn't let it go. We didn't recreate it. So it's totally mumbled and jumbled up. And so now no one's really living their dream, or we're just very living these dreams that we're not, if we are, we're definitely not talking about them. And again, well, I did it. I had my family. And then you're like, if you go and dream outside of that, was that family not enough? How could she, and it's always she, how could she? The other day I was talking to my husband, we were talking about Adele, the singer. And I don't know any of this to be true whatsoever, but I'm just going to tell you what I had kind of witnessed through media in the last few years. And they kind of would highlight how she would just leave, right? Media. And was leaving her daughter for long periods of time with her ex, her daughter's father. And there's all this, it felt very negative. And I go, well, how many fucking rock star dads, dads that are in bands that are actual rock stars, leave their kids? How often do you see on any sort of media that he's a bad parent? No, he's not a bad parent. He's following his dreams. But Adele, well, she's going to get backlash because she's a woman. That is what we need to work on, how to find your voice and the confidence to say, I love being a mom. I love being a partner. I love being a house manager. I love taking care of my family. But at the end of the day, if I have nothing else for myself, I kind of feel dead inside because I have not done anything for me. I have made others feel good, and that makes me smile, but it doesn't fill me up. It doesn't get me excited. We all had something. Might have been silly again, because as kids, we dream silly. We dream without limits. And it doesn't have to be attached to, well, I wanted to be in the Olympics. Well, what would that have felt like to be in the Olympics? I would have felt like I, really accomplished a goal and something I set out to do, I was able to finish. And that could look different. That doesn't have to be the Olympics. That'd be great. Sure. But again, anytime we talk to these athletes, they'll tell you they get there and then what? Because their value has been on that. So maybe it is, I want to just feel proud of myself for, trying new things. So that's what I'm going to do. That's going to be my dream this year. I'm going to be a trier of new experiences. The other part in this I want to touch on, which is we often share dreams with each other early on, and we see the areas that we might not be aligned. But we don't want to believe it. We don't want to believe the areas of unalignment, or we live in this denial world of they're going to change their mind. Once we have a family, then we're not going to want to have that job where they travel 50% of the time. They're going to see that, doing this outside of family time is not going to be as exciting, or they're gonna not push our kids to be in church even though they're saying that's really important, because it's not to me, right? We'll tell ourselves a lot of this stuff even though we saw there were areas that weren't aligned, and instead of saying that might be challenging with the way I'm kind of thinking, I wonder how we would be able to navigate this. We stay quiet, and then we act as though everybody should have known. This is what I said early on. When we see the areas that were not aligned, instead of being afraid of, if we point out that area of unalignment, that will mean breakup, it might mean breakup. But that might be back to the fear and the dreams, that might be the positive side of it not working out. But it doesn't always mean, when we highlight the area of unalignment, that breakup is inevitable. What it means is we're like, hey, this will be something that likely will be an issue for us for a very long time. So we should kind of talk about it now. Is this something that we're going to be able to navigate through? How do we manage the conflict around it right now? How are we talking through it now? If we're talking through it right now, I'm sure you're going to talk through it later, and you're going to have to talk through it because it's likely going to be one of those perpetual issues. So you're going to always need to know how to talk about it. It's not always just going to go away. So instead of being afraid, right, let's be real about it. We have some serious areas that we don't align on. And while you're amazing, this might be an issue for us down the road. So we should talk about it and be really real about it. Breakups suck, right? Divorces with children suck much, much more. So finding these things out early on is not a bad thing. And again, it also doesn't have to mean breakup. It just means we're going to have to be very aware of these. And we're going to need to talk through them. When it comes time to actually planning it out, we're going to have to compromise. We're going to have conflict that's connecting. We're going to have to feel amazing after these conversations, that we are a team, and that I really wish that could happen sooner. Here's where we're going to have to do it when we're talking intentionality, and we're talking compromise, and we're talking support, and we're talking like realistic what we can actually do in our life and the time that we have and the children we have and the responsibilities that we have. Like, at least again, like, then we know that's going to lessen anxiety once we start knowing. And then we're not going to have conflict because we know, like, yeah, we're talking about our dreams and we're actively living them and we're actively working on them. So I'm not in resentment. And if I start to get in resentment, what do I know I need to do? Class, I need to talk about it with my partner. I need to say how it is feeling for me and what it is that I need. And front load the shit out of it if you can. All right. Take some time with this one. Read through. Did you see anything? Like, I really am always curious, like, did you see something? And I was talking to someone recently and they were just like, oh yeah, we were just like, oh, we saw all the things. We just figured we'll talk through it. And then they realized that the talking through it part was hard. And often the talking through it part is hard is because we have all of these dreams underneath the conflict we haven't highlighted, we haven't talked about, we haven't followed. And we often feel and blame our partner for us not doing those things. So let's untangle this so we can get right with this one. Because when we live out our dreams, so much of the house can spark up with love and life as well. All right. Mahalo, guys.